That addiction will take you places you never thought it would. I was sitting there with a pipe, a bag of dope. I was like, I either need to change my life or I want to die. I had to lose parental rights of 5 children. I was homeless. I was arrested 21 times. Nowhere would have people thought that that's where my addiction took me. I called my dad and I was like, please come get me and take me to rehab. And somebody got me a job for a few days at another cleaning company. And I said, oh my gosh, I'm gonna work for myself. And I would work all day and all night. I was able to grow that company into a 7-figure company in less than 5 years. I'm not gonna settle for basic. I want extraordinary.
Linnsey Dolson, thank you so much for joining. I told you I looked into your stuff enough to know that it's a crazy story to tell. You're super open with it. So
I am.
5 kids by 23,
yes.
10 years sober, homeless to millionaire. It's a lot in between from what I could see. Where does your story start?
So, oh man, I feel like, I have a very low bottom of my story. Different people in recovery go to different levels of low. Some just lose a job and that's enough to get sober. And some, just get a DUI and that's enough to get sober. Me, I had to lose parental rights of 5 children. I was homeless. I was arrested 21 times. This is over a span of 12 years. And so my bottom is low, where my bottom took me. And I'm so open and raw about that. And I get mixed feedback. Let me tell you, there is definitely people who have, their point of view on it. But in my opinion, if I can gain anything from all of that, why not share with the world? And why not do some good with all that hell that I went through?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And yeah, if it can't be used to help someone, if you can't find good from it, it was almost suffering for nothing.
Right. That is how I feel. And sometimes, when I look back at my story, there's times I did a timeline of my story because it was like a blur when I got sober. I'm like, what the hell happened those last 12 years? Do I even know what happened?
Are you 12 years sober now? Or
no, I was out there for 12 years.
Yeah.
December will be 9 years for me.
Okay. Congrats.
December will be 9 years, but it was
incredible.
about a 12-year span where I was really out there and in my addiction. And I took out a piece of paper and I wrote from the year I started using and all the way down. And just the progression and all the things that happened to really make sense of that 12 years,
How old were you when you started using?
So,
set the stage of your life before you started using. Was it like a lot of people, and myself included, when you first come into that drug of choice that you're like, oh, that's for my chemistry. You get this, it's like the clouds open. You get this wave of relief and you're like, I didn't know I hated my life until I tried this.
Right?
Was it like that? What was your life like?
My whole life.
Yeah,
absolutely. So I started pretty young. I was a pretty wild child, and I actually had a really good upbringing. So I didn't come from a broken home. I didn't come from an abusive home, anything like that. I was just kind of naturally born with that self-centeredness, and the world revolved around me. And at 14, 15, 16, I started going out and, partying and drinking. I was pregnant by the time I was 15. Had my first son right when I turned 16. And then I had a second baby before I was 18. And I had this brilliant idea that right after my 18th birthday, I'm going to go be a stripper, because why the hell not, right? That's amazing.
I want to hear about that, but I'm actually curious. So you mentioned the self-centered, how did that show up? What problems did that create to be a self-absorbed, self-centered person, or the world revolves, however that looked for you?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I really just only worried about myself, in the sense of even taking off for a day or two and not worrying about my parents wondering where I am, or not caring, stealing my mom's car and totaling it, not caring about now that I'm an adult, I would die if my kid did that. stole my new Durango and totaled it and parked it back in our driveway?
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
And parked it back in the driveway.
With a note. Wait, no, it gets better. I put a note. I'm so sorry I hit your car. I apologize. Put a fake name and a fake phone number.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yes.
Did they buy it?
No,
Not
there
even for a
was like
second.
marijuana and everything else in the back and empty alcohol bottles, and she already knew. But like that kind of stuff, just so self-centered and only worried about myself, like not worried about the fact that she's going to have to deal with the insurance. She's going to have to deal with all of that. I just worried about, I wanted to go out, and me and my best friend wanted to go meet up with these guys, and that's all that mattered. So whatever I had to do to get that.
Not thinking past whatever your desire.
Yeah, just super obsessed and self-centered. And I feel like that carried on all the way until I got into sobriety. That really just self-centeredness, everything, what I want matters, what I need really matters. And you obsess off of that.
So it's almost like the problem is with the self-centeredness is that it doesn't leave room to care about other people. So you just satisfy your wants and needs, and there's wreckage all around you.
100%. A tornado. You're literally a tornado going through people's lives. Yeah.
Oh. So 18 after high school, great idea, be a stripper.
Yes.
Was it, where was this? Where are you from?
So I was born and raised in like Sacramento area.
Oh, okay.
And you know what's funny? I seen that movie with Demi Moore. I think it was called Striptease or something like that. And I was like, oh my God, brilliant. I'm going to do that.
Oh, that's what did it. Oh,
it triggered it, right?
Okay.
And
was the motivation money? What was the motivation?
The motivation was money. Absolutely. And so, 18, 2 kids, and I wanted that easy money, and my parents were both entrepreneurs. So I knew I wasn't going out for a 9 to 5, it just wasn't in the books. And at that point, I just wasn't in a place to obviously start a business or anything. So I go and I get a job at a strip club. And that is where all my drinking and using just took off. I remember at first I'd be so shy that I would drink every night. Like I would take shots before I'd have to go on stage.
We have to get naked in front of people. Sure, I'd be shy too.
Right. So I take up and then I'm like, wait, I got to go in the VIP room and do like lap dances. Give me some more.
I'm going to need some vodka. Thank you.
I'd be wasted. By the time I left the club, I would be so wasted, and I would actually drive drunk sometimes, go pick up the kids from daycare. They were at late night daycare, pick them up and drive home. And the next morning, my vehicle would just be my neighbors. I don't know what the hell they thought. Like sometimes it'd be a little bit on the grass. Sometimes it was parked this way. Like it was just horrible. And then pretty early on in there, I was really struggling with because I would work all night at the strip club. You're not off till 2, 3 in the morning. Here we go.
Oh, no.
I thought I found all my answers in life. And I'd be so tired during the day, and the babies wake up first thing in the morning. You got to take care of them. And I was just like struggling. It was hard.
Single moms are gangsters.
Oh my God.
It doesn't matter.
Dude, they are. And I remember one night I gave one of the girls a ride home from the club. And I was like, oh my God, I got to be up with my kids in like 3 hours.
Oh,
and
no.
she's like,
oh, I got you.
Smoke some of this. And I'm like, what is that?
Was it meth?
It was meth.
Okay.
It was meth. And holy shit.
It worked. Yeah.
Euphoric. I was like, wait, who needs sleep?
Yes.
And that day, I think I cleaned the whole house. I organized the kids' room. I went shopping. I grocery shopped. All of it. And then I was like, oh, it's time to go to work. Well, shit, don't even need no sleep. I was instantly obsessed. Like
right when it kicked in?
Yeah, because I was like,
it's funny the way
this is the answer to all my problems. Like, you don't even need sleep. And it just took off from there. It just took off. And so I even started drinking less at that point because like I didn't even need alcohol. Like I wasn't.
So you just loved it. It was your thing.
Like it worked for me. It worked so well for me. And I'm super ADD. And so it almost did a little bit of like what Adderall does for you too. And I'm like, wow, I can like focus in life. And I'm like, why doesn't everybody do this shit? It's amazing. Like, why does everybody not do this? And so that's where that really took effect. And then
was it manageable at first and then it took off, or was it a progressive thing? What did that look like?
No, it was manageable manageable in my books, right? So what do we call manageable, right? Like,
I know.
Yeah. In my books, it was manageable. Mm-hmm. I started losing like a ton of weight because I didn't want to eat, and I was always super petite anyways. And so I, even like the club manager was like, "Hey, you're getting a little skinny." Yeah. And so I bought tried different things like Ensures, and even like weight. There's like these shakes you drink for weight gain and all that because I couldn't eat on it.
Yeah, it makes you nauseous.
It makes you nauseous. It makes you not hungry. All of that. Well, then fast forward a little bit, I am pregnant with my third child. And I actually dance at the club. Like, I'm in denial almost that I'm pregnant. I'm still dancing until I'm like 8 months pregnant. And the manager was like, "Hey, so it's pretty obvious that you're looking pretty pregnant,
and they're
like, and they're like, honestly, at this point, we just have to have you stop because it's a liability. If you slip, you fall, whatever." And I was still using at this time, not a ton, but off and on while I was pregnant, which is horrific. But that's that in my mind.
It's part of your story.
It's part of my story.
You'd change it if you could, but you can't.
Right,
so you might as well be honest about it. See who it helps.
And then had my third son. And I was back at the club like 3 weeks after I gave birth. And that's that, like, doing the meth, you don't even feel nothing. I mean, I remember the manager at the club was like, "Didn't you just give birth?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Let's go. I got this. I got 3 kids to support."
So was the money worth it?
At that time, I did make great money. Okay. So I did make great money, driving a great car, all that. But I blew a lot of the money too, right? Sure. Because easy come, easy go.
Yeah.
So I finally got to a point in my addiction where I couldn't even continue working. My addiction completely took over. I wouldn't end up going to work. Like, it just got really, really bad. And at that point, I did what most people do in their addiction, and you get together with the drug dealer. Because, like, why not, right? Is that the next step? Is that what we do?
It kind of is.
That's the next step on that journey. My life just like spiraled out of control. I ended up getting evicted out of our home that we were in. I was so bad on drugs that I just left all of our stuff there. The landlord had to put it out on the street. My family ended up like going and collecting it, baby books, like all of that stuff. And at that time I was staying in like a hotel with the kids. And I remember that's where everything like just went downhill.
Where the dad?
So the dad of the 3 was, by this time, he was in prison. Which kind of makes sense because he was in the same...
The math checks out.
Yeah, math totally checks out. So while I was working at the club, he kept going in and out of jail until he ended up in prison. So he wasn't involved. And at this point, I was driving in a car with the guy I was dating, and I had the 3 kids in the car. And
the drug dealer. Okay.
And we had in the trunk, like underneath, we had loaded guns and tons of ounces, like ounces and ounces of meth. Okay. And I had at that time like a warrant from like, it was something super mild. Like, I didn't show up for traffic court, just something to the point where I think they normally wouldn't have brought you in, but they were looking for an excuse to like make sure I was under, see if I was under the influence. So we get pulled over and they search the car, take us both to jail, find all of that.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So at that point,
did he own it and say it was his, or did he make you split that?
No, he didn't fucking own it.
Damn
He did not own it.
Coward.
He didn't, because he's, they're pieces of crap.
Yeah, he's
such a piece of crap. And they did end up knowing it was his, but I was under the influence. So that was the only charge I got. But I got brought in. CPS got called, and the kids ended up going with my mom. So
thank God that's where they went at least.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Such a blessing. So the kids went with my mom. And then at that point, that opened up a whole window of
even more debauchery for you, right? Now there's no responsibility. Right?
At that point, it was like they were like, well, you're not getting these kids back until you can test sober for a while. I couldn't fucking test sober. I could not get sober for the life of me. And I think at that point.
At this point, how long had you been using?
Oh, goodness. So let's fast forward like 18. I should have brought my timeline.
Right, that's all right.
You're so
just
good.
Curious.
I'm just playing. So I would say I started meth around 18. And at this point, I was maybe 21.
Okay.
I think 21, right in there. Probably 21. So about 4 years. And at that point, my mom had the kids, and this went on for a while. CPS would actually put me in rehabs. I went to like probably 10 in a matter of less than a year. And I wouldn't stay but like a few days. And what would happen is I would go and then I would just sleep for days. And when I woke up, I had to deal with this, right? I had to deal with everything I was going through, all the guilt and the shame and just all of it. And I couldn't manage it. And I would take off, and all I wanted to do was hurry up and just numb myself from all of that. And so I would hurry up and go out and end up getting high again. And finally, after so long, they were like, we're done. We're terminating your parental rights, and your mom's going to adopt the children. And at this point, my mom still let me see the kids. So there was a little bit of that enabling in the sense where I felt like I kind of was like,
the best of both worlds.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I can still go see the kids and spend time with the kids, but then do my thing. I don't know if they went into foster care, if it would have been different. It would have been. I think it would have been different because I would have had that fire under my butt to like, okay, I have to. But when I knew they were with my mom, I still got to see them, all of that. It was a sense of enabling, and not like blaming anybody.
No, I get it.
But it was.
Yeah.
And so finally they were like, we're done. We're terminating your parental rights. And then at this time, my mom was like, I guess CPS had found out that she was letting me see the kids. And they were like, we're going to pull these kids from you if you continue that.
Okay.
And so my mom was like, she cut me off. And there was a gap where I didn't see the kids for like 2 years. And that at that point was where I just went completely downhill.
Oh,
I could not get high, or I could not do enough drugs to numb that pain, that guilt, that shame. It stopped working.
Were you drinking as well?
I drank a lot, but I was mostly meth. Meth was I was so in love with it. That was like my world.
Meth with no alcohol is rough. That takes a strong mind.
I know, it does. And so like at this point, I was just running, and I ended up getting pregnant again. Big surprise. So this is my 5th baby. And at this point, I was so bad in my addiction that I was just in denial the whole time that I was pregnant. Didn't really tell anybody. I got no prenatal care whatsoever. I used drugs the whole pregnancy, and I was just like in denial. I was in this world where like my reality was not reality. And I was like, in my head, I was like, oh, well, I'll get sober and I'll get prenatal care. It'll be fine. And I remember one night being in a house. I think it was just some house I was renting a room from or something. And my water breaking and being like, oh, shit.
Okay, I'm definitely pregnant.
Oh, yeah, definitely pregnant.
Crap.
Oh, my God. And I had just like, I was under the influence and everything else. And I had to go to the hospital. And I remember, I gave birth, and then like 4 sheriffs came in, and they're like, we're trying to decide if we're going to arrest you or not for child endangerment, everything else, which would be for using while you're pregnant. They took the baby. Obviously, my mom came and picked the baby up from the hospital, and I wasn't able to leave with the baby. And same thing. CPS was like, get sober. You can have this baby back. I couldn't fucking do it. Well, it gets worse.
Were there times when you were done and you're just like, I'm done, and then you used again?
Not yet at this point.
Okay.
There wasn't. There was not a time. I always wanted to be done. So it's different. I wanted to be done so bad. I used to watch the show Intervention thinking it would convince me that I needed to be done and get sober. I wanted to be done so bad, so bad. Like I wanted to change my life so bad and I did not know how. Like, when you're driving and you make one wrong turn or two wrong turns, three, you go, oh yeah, I just need to go back this way, this way, this way. But when you've been making wrong turn after
really
wrong
good analogy.
turn for that long, I didn't know how to get back. I didn't even know where to begin. Like I had lost everything at this point. I had nothing. Well, I give birth to a baby. My mom ends up, taking the baby home. CPS puts me in rehab. I stay for like 5 days. And once I was there for like 5 days and I'm like, and I really wanted to do it. Like when I went in, I was like, I'm going to do this. I am going to do this. And I remember waking up on like the 5th day. I think I slept for like 5 days. And like on the 5th day, I woke up and I was sober. And then what happens when you're sober? You feel all of that. And can you imagine the amount of shame, guilt, just all of it? I could not even fathom what the hell I have done in my life. So I leave. And this was just weeks after I had gave birth, and I get pregnant again.
Wow.
Right
I didn't
away.
even know you could do that.
Yeah.
Holy
nuts. I do the same thing. I don't get any prenatal care. I use the whole time and go end up at a hospital giving birth to another baby. That's the exact same thing. 10.5 months later.
How are they now?
Amazing. One's right there.
That's so. Thank you so much for sharing all this. 'Cause there's so many people with this story that would never share it. That you've just given so much freedom and relief to.
It is. So many people are like, "Are you kidding me?" And that's my story. And am I proud of it? Hell no. Do I think it is absolutely insane? Hell yes, I do. It's hard to even believe that happened. It was like a whole different life ago.
Like a bad dream or something.
Like a bad dream. But it is my reality. And when I go to rehabs and talk to women, it is actually more common than you think for women to use when they're pregnant.
Yes, yeah.
Because if you're already addicted to drugs, and you're not able to get sober just for your kids, having a child in your stomach is not going to do it. It's not. You're going to continue using. There is so many babies born on a daily basis with, where the parents have used.
Yep.
And so I really want to share that part of my story. And it's raw. And I've also talked to my kids hey, I want to write a book and I want to share what are your thoughts on this? And my son wants to get into politics and he's like, well, it'll probably be pulled up later and, politics. But for the most part, my kids are super understanding and
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Sorry, I digressed.
I know. I want you to.
Baby.
That's so great because there's so much to the story. And what was I feeling at that time? What was going on? And did the same thing. Had another baby. My mom had to pick the baby up from the hospital. They put me in rehab again. I was going to do it this time. This time I was ready.
You meant it.
I meant it.
You would have passed a polygraph.
For 3 days. For 3 days. And it was worse. It was worse when I woke up sober than it was the time before because I had even more wreckage. And I had 4 boys. And I remember this baby was a girl. And I was like, oh my God, I've always wanted. I love my boys. Don't get me wrong. But I got a girl? I didn't even know I could make those. And I still couldn't get sober. I could not get sober to get my babies. And I love my kids more than anything in this world. And I have loved my children since the day they were born. At no point did I not love my children or did I not want my children.
That's so crazy. That's the craziest thing about addiction.
Right.
It overrules the strongest instinct on planet Earth, which is the maternal instinct. Whatever addiction is stronger than that.
Oh my God, it is.
So crazy.
It is the only thing that can break that bond that a mom has for her children because it numbs you. It numbs you from life. It numbs you from reality, from everything. Can you imagine now? ever using, if somebody gets secondhand smoke around my kids, man, I'm going to smack you. Get away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't even want, we're gluten-free, we're dairy-free. Like, you know what I mean? We're not putting toxins in our body.
Right.
And for me to have a sweet, precious baby in my stomach and do meth, can you freaking imagine?
I can, because I have a past with addiction,
right.
but outside people looking in.
But outside they couldn't imagine.
No.
And it's not that they don't love their children. It's not any of that. It is that addiction will take you places you never thought it would. And you would have thought that would have been enough to get me sober, but it wasn't. It wasn't. My mom ended up having to adopt all 5 of them. And I ended up being able to move in with my mom. So I was able to be in their lives. So I lived with my mom and the children, but I was still in my addiction.
Damn it.
See, I know. I know. And so I still got to really be involved in their life, which I'm so grateful for that time. And I don't know that they even all realized how messed up I was. Like, there's times where I've talked about it and they're like, well, I mean, you were there. You were just, it wasn't that bad. And I was like, I was bad. But I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for those years that even I only missed like 2 years of their life, which is 2 years I'll never get back. But I'm so grateful for my mom that I still got to be a very big part of their life.
I'm grateful for your mom too. That's awesome.
So great. Yeah.
What was like the rock bottom moment?
Yeah.
What was the white light moment?
We're almost there. So let's speed up maybe 3-4 years. I get pregnant again. And my mom's like, I'm not taking this baby. And I was just so bad in my addiction at that time that I would say I was coming home. I wouldn't come home for 3-4 days. I was going to jail all the time. I mean, the police came to the house in front of the kids and arrested me for different stuff. I mean, keep in mind, I have 21 arrests. So, and they're all for little petty stuff like getting high or under the influence or nothing, thank God, nothing major. Mm-hmm. But at this point, my mom was like, you're done. You're out of here. And she put a restraining order on me.
Wow.
From her and all the kids. And at that point, I remember I was like, okay, I'm going to go to rehab. And I went into rehab. And I left after my normal, I think I was on like 4 or 5 days. Yeah, that's about my run. And when I left, I had nowhere to go. Nobody wanted anything to do with me. I had burned every bridge. I had like a trash bag left of stuff I had. And I remember walking down Antelope Road in some cheap sandals that were breaking. I was pregnant. I had nothing. I had a little tub of stuff and I ended up throwing it away because I couldn't carry it anymore. And at this point, I remember I stopped by a house of some person I used with, and I was in the bathroom and I called back the rehab and I said, will you please let me come back? I promise I'm done. Please. And they said, yes, if you come tomorrow, you can come back. And at this time on Antelope Road, let's back up a second. I actually took a cab from the rehab, but I had no money. So I tried to burn the cab driver. He called the police on me. Then I'm walking down Antelope Road running from the police with my bag. So before I got to that house to call the rehab, and they ended up catching up with me. And I explained to the cops, they said, look, I'm going back to rehab. I'm bad. And they said, we wish you all the luck in the world. And they let me go. And so I called my dad and I was like, please come get me and take me to rehab. And he picked me up. It was so funny. He couldn't get a hold of me. And he's out front calling me. And he's like, because I forgot to give him the address. I told him the street. And he's like, I don't know what house you're in, but there's only one house on this block where there's like 17 broken down cars in front of it and everything else. I bet you I'm in the right house. I look out front. He's parked out front.
Oh, good.
And so at that point, all I had to my name was like a bag with an extra outfit I stole from Goodwill and a pair of dollar store flip-flops that I had re-glued 10 times. And my dad dropped me off at rehab. And I remember that was July 3rd of 2015. I was pregnant. And that was my final time I ever used. That was it. And I remember waking up like on day 4 and 5, and it was something a little different.
I was going to ask, did that feeling of going in like, I'm done this time, feel different than the others?
100%.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
there was a feeling at that moment in that bathroom while I was sitting there with a pipe, a bag of dope, and nothing else, that I was like, I either need to change my life or I want to die, because I can't live another day like this. The pain, the guilt, all of that was more than I could ever endure. I mean, when I say pain, I remember waking up, and until I got high, I couldn't even almost breathe, because the guilt and shame and everything in my stomach hurt so bad that I would run. I would wake up and go run and hurry up and hit the pipe so that I could be like, okay.
Start the day.
Yes.
To hit it more.
Like I can function. And so it was so different. I was truly, truly done. And I stayed. They kept me there for 5 months.
That's awesome.
5 months I stayed.
90 days is probably the minimum. If you're really in your addiction, you know people that go in and 30, out 30 days, that's nothing. You're not even thinking clear yet.
I needed every bit of it. And I was so grateful, because at that point, my mom let the kids come to the rehab. So I had them staying there a lot with me, because it was a rehab that was family friendly. So like kids lived there too. So the kids would be with me on the weekends. I gave birth to my 6th child at the rehab and brought the baby home to the rehab. And I was just able to like rebuild my life from there. And then at that point, I did 5 months in rehab, and I was doing really good. I got out, and I thought, but I think I could still have a drink. Like, I'm not an alcoholic. Let me tell you. I went out and I had a glass of wine, woke up in Placer County Jail.
Damn it.
I know.
Did meth come back in the picture?
It did not.
Okay.
It did not. And that was the one and done. So I had a glass of wine, must have turned into like 30. And somebody called 911 and said, I am following this car on Auburn Folsom Road, and they've almost hit 5 telephone poles.
Boy.
And they pulled me over, and I woke up in Placer County Jail, and I called my dad. He bailed me out. I woke up that next morning, me and the baby. With the baby, I went back into rehab for 90 days, and that was done. So at that point, it only took one time I went out, and I went back into the program. And the reason I did is because of the fact that just because I gave birth, Medi-Cal has a program where you get 6 months after you give birth. I believe it's 6 months postpartum of treatment. So I said, let me go and finish that. So I didn't actually do the full 90 days in the program. They ended up sending me to a transitional for like 60 of it. I did like 30 more there and 60 there.
Which transitional?
New Leaf. So,
yeah.
And
okay.
you know,
what was
it's so
the rehab?
funny. The rehab was Progress House in Garden Valley.
Yeah.
And they ended up placing me at a transitional living home in Auburn. And I built my empire in Auburn.
That's awesome.
So that's how I ended up in Auburn. And
one thing that people don't understand, and we've kind of touched on it about addiction, is when you're done, when people are like, I'm done, Mom, I'm so sorry, Dad, I'm so sorry, blah, 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 whatever, they mean it.
Oh,
and
hell
then
yeah.
at some point, I think people think they just choose to not be done. It's not like that.
No.
It's this very subtle train of thinking that either convinces you to change your mind, or that you can be done again, or you like black out almost, and then you're high and you're like, how did I get here? But it's never like, hey, remember all those people you promised? We're going to go back on that.
No.
Or remember the promise you made yourself? We're going to go back on that. You know, all that wreckage, let's keep going. It's way more insidious than that. And so is that what you experienced?
It 100%. Every time I went to rehab, I truly wanted to be done so bad. I was like, God, please, please help me to be able to do this. And then I would start obsessing on it.
Yeah.
I would start obsessing on getting high. That's all I would think about. I remember that we called it mommy school whenever I would go to rehab. And I remember that I heard this story later on and it just killed me. There's so many stories I hear later on. It just breaks my heart. But my son called with my mommy school, to see how mommy's doing in it. And they're like, she left today. It was day 4 or 5. And I remember that I would always obsess until I left. And I hurried up and went and got high. And then I'd be high and I would be like, why the hell did I do that? I'm back. I'm back in this miserable, miserable life. Why did I do that? But it was just, you obsess off it. It's like something you can't control.
Oh, yeah.
It's horrible.
Oh, yeah.
It's horrible.
It's terrible.
Addiction is a hell on earth like no other. Like no other. There's nothing now in life that I can't handle because of all the trauma that I put myself through in my addiction. Let me tell you, there is not shit that this world could bring on today that I can't handle because of all the trauma. I mean, when people are going through that, they are miserable.
Oh, yeah. They're not having fun. You're a very positive, upbeat person. So if any of those stories sound fun, that was not fun.
No. Oh, my God.
You're not having any fun.
Well, and the thing is, too, is I can tell the story today without sobbing. It was not always like that. I remember when in rehab early on, we had to write sorry letters to our children and read them out loud. And then we burned them. And I had to write 5 letters. It took me so long to read it because I was like, because the pain, it was horrible. Now I can talk about it like that because I have dealt with that. I have dealt with it and I have made an amends. And while I can't take back anything I did, I get to make a living amends today. That means that I get to be the best mom that I can possibly be for the rest of my life. I get to spend every moment with my children I possibly can. And let me tell you, I am obsessed with my kids. Maybe to a new level. I drive my 8-year-old nuts. I'll go in her room and she'll be like, what? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just so excited.
Just following you.
I get to be your mom.
Yeah.
Like, what?
That's a beautiful mindset
It
to live
is. And she's like, Mom, stop. I'm making a YouTube video. Or, because she doesn't realize it. She's like, Mom's being annoying. Or, my older kids, I mean, even my boys, they're grown. And I'm always just hugging on them and loving on them. And I'm just like, you are so perfect. Like, I'm just so obsessed today that I get that second chance to be a mom. And let me tell you what a blessing it is. Like,
it's awesome.
I love it. I'm like, when they have birthdays, I'm like, man, this stuff needs to stop. I'm not ready for you to grow up. Like, I need to milk every moment of this. And so that just shows like the fact that today, I've always had that in me. Like the day when my son, like my first baby was born, I was obsessed with this baby. I was like, I am going to be the best mom I could possibly be forever. Nowhere did I ever think that I am going to get addicted to meth and you're going to have to be adopted and da-da-da-da-da. I mean, there's still things that today, 9 years sober, I have my children. We have this beautiful life. I still have to have my mom come when I enrolled the like 5 older ones, like in school or anything like that, because I'm legally not the guardian and we couldn't go back and change it because once parental rights are terminated.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's not like that for my youngest, but my oldest 5, like there's so many things that it still followed,
So how did you after rehab, what did you do to maintain sobriety? 12-step program?
So I did. I did a 12-step program and I really jumped in. So the tea house that I was at required us to do so many self-help meetings. Mm-hmm. Well, my dad's in AA and had years sober. And so my dad really would come take me to meetings. He was like my biggest support. My dad would come every weekend that I was in rehab, bring the kids. He would come pick me up on visits, take me home. That was my ride or die. Let me tell you, my dad just passed away last year. Oh. And that was definitely something. Thank God that I'm in recovery, that I could have handled that. But he was
thank God he got to see you like this.
He did.
Imagine that.
Oh my God, he was my biggest fan. He was so cute, just like my biggest fan. But my dad really introduced me into that 12-step program. And then the transitional living made us do 12-step program meetings. And so like I would be a secretary at meetings. I really jumped into it quite a bit at first, just because I needed to fix what was in there. And I'm so grateful that when I got sober, that light that I always had inside of me, like when I was young, I used to help my mom run her public relations firm. And so I always had that entrepreneur, just make it happen spirit. And that started coming back. And I was like, wait, we're not settling for basic. I remember in the tea house, they're like, okay, let's put in job applications, like Walmart's hiring, And I went, I was like, sure, I'll get a job at Topgolf as a waitress. So I'm in my first day of training. They call me back and they say, yeah, we just ran your background check and you have a 21 arrest. So we're going to have to let you go. And that was the best thing that ever happened, because at that moment I said, you know what? I'm going to work for myself. I'm going to work for myself. And somebody got me a job for a few days at another cleaning company. And I said, oh my gosh, I can do this. I can duplicate this. And at that moment, I started my own cleaning company. And I bought a car for $500. This thing had no power steering. When I parked, I could not park anywhere. I had to pull out. I had to park so I could go straight out. No power steering. And it leaked. I don't even know what it leaked, but it was all different color stuff. So I would carry a piece of cardboard in the car and I would pull up to these beautiful homes and I'd have to put the cardboard under it so that it didn't drip on their driveways. Then I come out and I'm like, are they looking at my on camera? Okay, and I grab the cardboard and I'd like balance it until I got it in the trunk. My trunk was so gross. It's horrible.
Putting in work, that's what it takes.
And pretty early on was I able to make enough to buy a vehicle. And oh my God, was I so excited. I bought this van and I got it wrapped with Linnsey's Cleaning Services. That's my cleaning company. And I drove this thing everywhere. I loved this. And by this time, I moved out of the transitional housing, got my own apartment with the kids, and I was doing the cleaning company and I worked my butt off. I seen early on that there was so much potential of growing it into a huge company. And I would work all day and all night. And I was able to grow that company into a 7-figure company in less than 5 years.
Amazing.
So,
congrats.
Such a blessing.
Wildly impressive.
It was such a blessing. And I remember being in rehab, and it took so much work to stay high, to stay above ground, to do all that. And my counselor was like, if you take all of that and you put it towards something
or even
positive,
half of that. It is so hard to stay high full time.
It is a job in itself to stay high when you have no job,
it's a skill set,
no money, no nothing, and you have to stay high. Oh, and I had a gambling addiction, so we got to feed that too. Yeah, no, we didn't just stop at drugs. We had to feed our gambling addiction as well. It took so much money and planning, okay, maybe if I help this person get their stuff, then I'll make a little bit off it and then I'll do this. And then maybe if I go to the casino, I can turn this 20 into the insanity, And so I took that same drive and I threw it into my business and my life. And I knew at that point that I was not going to settle. And all my kids needed braces. My son, wanted to go to college. Like there was so many things. And that fear of not being able to provide that really just put the fire under my butt. I remember when I was able to put braces on all the kids, like super early on, that was a big moment. I was so excited. And then my oldest got accepted to University of Southern California.
Oh, wow.
And that helped because I'm like, well, I got to get him housing there. I got to help with schooling, all of that. And so like all these things I had to do just put the fire. Like I had no choice but to make a lot of money. I had no choice. And I'm so grateful for that fire today, know? And I've always had in me that I'm not going to settle for basic. I want extraordinary. But that got lost. I remember being a kid and being like, I'm not going to settle. Like, I'm going to be rich and I'm going to be famous and I'm going to be all these things. And then I ended up a homeless drug addict. What? That wasn't what the plan was supposed to be. How the hell did that happen? And then, once I got sober, I found that fire again. I found that just that fire in me. And I was like, no, we're not doing ordinary. We're doing extraordinary. I am building a life beyond my wildest dreams. And I am going to provide my kids with a life beyond their wildest dreams. And today, I can't even imagine. There's days I wake up and I'm like, is this for real? Like, is this my reality? And a lot of times, it almost seems like that wasn't real. Like, that wasn't really this Linnsey. That was a different Linnsey.
Kind of was.
It was. It was. Like, that person doesn't really exist. And there's so many things that, have happened in sobriety that I forget about. I don't forget, but it's so far away. Like, I tried to do a life insurance policy and they wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Because of all the drug history. Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. All the drug history and the DUI. And do you know how embarrassed I was? That was one of my good friends that does life insurance, and they pulled up they take your arrest record. And I was like, well, there's kind of a story behind that.
Yeah. But, how much time do you got?
yeah, I know, right? That was then. This is now. We'll just leave it at that. But so there's a lot of, it still comes back a little bit. Yeah. But my way is I put it all out there anyways. I share so raw that you're not going to find nothing and be able to throw it in my face because I already admit I did it. Like, nowhere am I saying that I was a great person. And so I'm so grateful for the confidence to be able to share it so raw. I remember early on in sobriety, I was embarrassed and I didn't want people to know I was a drug addict. And oh my God, what if people find out that my mom had to adopt the kids? Or like the first time that I had to take my mom with me to do something at the school, I was like so embarrassed. Oh my God, this is just. And then I got to the point where I was like, you know what? That's okay. I'm going to embrace it. Acceptance. Acceptance is the answer to all your problems today. If you accept what it was, you can move forward with it, And so I just accepted that was the life that I lived. And I started sharing it so raw. And that's where I first started sharing on social media. I did like TikToks where I did all my mugshots and then my after story and stuff like that. And people were like, holy
Yeah, it's pretty shocking.
Holy shit.
You are not recognizable.
No, I'm not. And people, they think when I say, I had an addiction, like that maybe I was on Adderall or I was doing this or maybe just drinking a little too much. Nowhere did they ever think that like I was a homeless drug addict. On my teeth, I spent $50,000 redoing my teeth. I destroyed my teeth.
They look
my
incredible
addiction.
and
Thank
natural.
Thank you.
I would have never known.
But yeah, because it takes you to that point. Yeah. I had destroyed my teeth, my looks. I was homeless. I had nowhere to live. Nowhere would have people thought that that's where my addiction took me. Yeah. That I gave birth to 2 children that were pause talks at the hospital that were taken from me at the hospital. Like now that I think about that, like, can you imagine? Yeah. Can you imagine? And like if I see a woman and she's pregnant and someone's smoking near her, like I want to slap her, And so I'm just so grateful that
I can feel it.
That I get this life. Like I'm on my bonus round of life. That's what I call this. I am in my bonus round and I am going hard. And I'm starting a new program with Angela. I think you know Angela.
Her episode's not out yet. She came on.
Love her.
Another amazing woman.
So amazing. And her and I met at an event in LA and we're like, oh my God, this was God said. Yes, she's amazing.
Yeah.
And so we're starting this, we're going to film it and make it a whole reality series where we're going the homeless camps, we're outreach. And we're going to work on trying to get people out of there, get them into treatment and follow their journey. Like my hope is to get them into treatment, get, their housing, get their children back. Like there's so much. I love that. Fills my cup to see that. I've worked with women.
How you're going to maintain sobriety.
That is how I maintain my sobriety. Watching women that I've worked with come out of a hell like no other and so broken. You see it in their eyes. Their eyes are just so broken and so defeated. Yeah. Exactly.
Hopeless.
And watching them just get their lives together and get their kids back and get a house and end up married and beautiful life like that. Hell yes. I love that. That fills my cup. And that is what keeps me sober today. I'm so excited for this new journey that we're doing and this new outreach. It's going to be super fun. And we're doing a poster where we're doing some of my before pictures, because I think you've seen some of my before pictures on social media. When I said I go hard, I was not playing. Like, I go hard.
Where do people reach you?
So they can find me on social media. It's all my platforms are the same. It's at Linnsey Dolson, and I'm on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube.
Perfect. Tell me, can we talk about your spiritual beliefs?
Yes. Oh my God. I am an open book. Okay. Go for it.
Are you religious, spiritual, God, energies? Or what do you get? How do you get down?
I grew up Christian. Okay. And I am still Christian. I love God. Do I go to church that much? Not that often. I don't know exactly what God looks like, but I know there's something. There is something out there, because something took me from the pits of hell and helped me rebuild my life.
Just relieving.
And I didn't do that myself. And I pray to God, and I prayed to God many days in jail cells and everything. And I still pray to God. Do I understand exactly what that God looks like? No. Do I understand what life looks like when we pass? No. But I want to say that I have a God. Yes. So I would say I'm religious/spiritual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like you get communication from God, or direction, or knowings, or like when you answer, and I ask everyone this because it's fascinating. Everybody has an individual relationship with God. And even religious structures, it's still an individual thing. And so people will pray and ask for direction or guidance, and they hear back in all different kinds of ways. It's either coincidences, or somebody tells a message that they directly needed, all different kinds of things like that. Do you have any experiences like that?
Oh, all the time. Yeah. I feel that when my life happens so smooth, like, I can't even believe that my life is the way it is now, and it's like God's will. When I just pray and I do the work, but I pray and I follow God's will, I feel like everything just falls into place perfect. When I get on self-will, shit gets messy, you know?
Explain the difference between those two for people that aren't familiar with those terms.
I feel like my will is when something's not naturally working out and I'm trying to make it work out. I'm trying to make things go my way, and it's really not meant to be that way. It just doesn't happen. When things are meant to be that way, they just happen so smooth, and they flow, and you do the footwork. And I feel like that's God's will. How do
you stay in touch with that?
I don't always. Yeah. But when, I have a week and I'm like, things aren't going so smooth. Let's back up.
Okay.
Reevaluate things and stop trying to take control of this situation. Stop trying to always control everything. Surrender. Thank you. I surrender. Stop trying to take control. My best thinking at that moment got me as a homeless drug addict. I needed something else to take control and just to surrender. Like, I remember being in that rehab and on my hands and knees praying that God, please take away the obsession to use. Take away my obsession to use, please, God. And I remember when that obsession to use lifted. That was a whole different experience.
Dude, that just gave
I didn't do that myself. That had to have been God, because I did not do that myself.
No, it's the same thing that made you neglect children, and you didn't remove that. That's
right.
I believe people getting sober is direct evidence for God. That's just my
100%. I did not do that on my own. I did not. That was God, and I definitely believe that there is a God. 100%.
Thank you for sharing that too.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Right on. This was a blast. I'm so glad to meet you. Her daughter's in the room.
I bring my
17-year-old
daughters.
daughter.
Like, what a blessing that I get to show them
So
all
cool.
of this. It's
So
amazing.
cool.
It's amazing.
And they get to see everything you've gotten was one foot in front of the other.
Right.
Nothing was handed.
Right.
So they'll have big dreams too.
They will.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed that episode, check out this one right here. It's a story of another amazing woman who defied all odds and overcame extreme adversity to build a beautiful life for herself. Enjoy.